There are trips that take you to beautiful places, and then there are journeys that take you back through history, memory, and family. For me, this wasn't just another trip to Cambodia. It was my first time experiencing the country through my parents' eyes. You see, they hadn't returned in over 30 years, not since the Khmer Rouge tore apart their homeland and forever changed the course of their lives. What I thought would be a vacation quickly became one of the most emotional journeys I've ever experienced. Our adventure began in Phnom Penh, the city where I was born. We stayed at a hotel just across from the Royal Palace. We had a beautiful view of its golden rooftops shimmering in the morning sun. As we made our way to the palace, I realized that as breathtaking as the golden rooftops were, I wasn't focused on the architecture. I was watching my mom.
Who used to work here?
My great-grandfather used to work here.
How many years?
Long time, since like 1950, over 1950. He was a super judge here.
Quietly stood there with tears filling her eyes. "This is where I grew up," she whispered. She pointed toward a nearby home. She said softly, "Our family used to live right there." For a moment, time seemed to stop. I wasn't looking at Cambodia through the eyes of a tourist anymore. I was seeing it through the eyes of a little girl, revisiting the place she once called home. Just a short distance away, we visited what is now the National Museum. Before Cambodia's darkest chapter, this building was a university where my grandfather taught. My mom smiled through her tears as she pointed to the courtyard. "I used to run around here while waiting for your grandfather to finish teaching." Listening to those stories was priceless. They weren't stories from a history book. They were my family's memories. But happiness and heartbreak exist side by side in Cambodia. Later that afternoon, after sharing lunch with my uncle along the riverside, we visited Tos Lang Genocide Museum, formerly known as S21. What made this visit even more personal was learning that before it became one of the Khmer Rouge's most notorious prisons, my father had attended high school here as a student. Walking through those classrooms was haunting. Thousands of photographs lined the walls, men, women, and children whose lives ended within those very buildings. As I looked into their faces, I couldn't stop wondering, what were their dreams? Did they know their photographs would one day become their final testimony to the world? It was impossible not to feel sadness. I met a survivor and sat down to listen to his stories. From Tos Lang, we traveled on for about 25 minutes outside the city to the killing fields. Standing there in silence, surrounded by peaceful trees and open land, it was almost impossible to comprehend the unimaginable suffering that had taken place beneath my feet. Both my mom and dad lost friends, siblings. My mom lost her dad. Between 1.5 million and 2 million people died under the Khmer Rouge between 1975 and 1979. Sometimes history is difficult to understand until you're standing exactly where it happened. The following morning, we left Phnom Penh and made the drive towards Siem Reap. Along the way, we stopped in Sat Lait before continuing to Bakong to visit my grandfather's tomb. My grandfather had dedicated his life to becoming a Buddhist monk, and this was his final resting place. Watching my mother and father reunite with the elders who had once been close friends of my grandfather was incredibly moving. More than 30 years had passed, yet the love and respect they held for him had never faded. Journey brought us to Barai, where my parents reunited with old family friends and the woman who had cared for me when I was a toddler. The incredible part, they remembered me immediately. I, on the other hand, had no memory of them. It reminded me that sometimes other people carry pieces of our childhood that we ourselves can no longer remember. Then came one of my favorite memories of the trip. I convinced both of my parents to hop onto a motorcycle with me and experience Cambodia the local way. If you've ever been to Cambodia, you know there always seems to be room for one more passenger.
Only in Cambodia would this happen. Trying to drive a tiny house through this narrow road.
Our next stop was in Wat, and there it was, a place I'd seen my entire life in paintings hanging inside Cambodian homes and restaurants around the world. But standing before it was something completely different. As we walked toward the temple, I noticed my mom becoming emotional once again. She looked at the weathered stones and quietly said that seeing Angkor Wat today broke her heart. She remembered how magnificent it had once been before decades of war, neglect, and destructions scarred so much of Cambodia. As she spoke about the Khmer Rouge and everything the country had lost, I could hear the pain in her voice. It wasn't anger over a monument. It was grief for an entire generation. We continued exploring Taprom, Preh Rup, and several other incredible temples. Along the way, monkeys casually wandered through the ancient ruins as if they had become the rightful guardians of these timeless places. Here I am with our BFF, Sarat, who also served as our tour guide as we explored the temples of Angkor. Listening to him bring the history and stories of these ancient temples to life made the experience so much more meaningful. What made it even more special was hearing my mom and dad chiming in from time to time, sharing their own memories and experiences growing up in Cambodia. It felt like history wasn't just something we were learning. It was something our family had lived. By lunchtime, we did what every Cambodian family knows best. We sat together on woven plastic mats laid across the ground and enjoyed catfish wrapped in banana leaves, steamed rice, and plenty of brohok. My favorite. I've always joked, the stinkier the food, the better it tastes. And honestly, I still believe it. After lunch, Sarat took us on a boat ride through the floating villages on Tanlay Sap Lake. Seeing entire communities living on floating homes, schools, churches, markets, and businesses completely changed my perspective. As the sun disappeared, my parents headed back to rest, but my night was just beginning. We went to Pub Street. Music poured from every restaurant, people danced in the streets, the energy was contagious. For a moment, it almost felt like I had been transported to Cabo or another beach town rather than Cambodia. On our final day in Siem Reap, we explored Angkor Thom and the Terrace of the Elephants. Growing up, my brother's nickname was Damrai, which means elephant in Khmer. So visiting the terrace of the elephants brought back a lot of childhood memories and plenty of laughs. Before leaving, I knelt quietly inside Ngol Thom to offer a prayer of gratitude for safe travels, for my parents, for the generations who came before me, and for the opportunity to return to the country that shaped our family's story. This journey reminded me that while war can destroy buildings and scatter families across the world, it can never erase memories, culture, or the resilience of the human spirit. Thank you for joining me on this unforgettable journey through Cambodia. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who believes that travel is about more than seeing new places. It's about understanding the stories that make those places unforgettable.